Hey, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Move to Sioux Falls. My name's Howard Heising V, and we got to interview Jael Thorpe, owner of Gameday Social, and she told us a little bit about how she integrates her family life into her work life, how her vision has stayed on course with her business, and how Sioux Falls is better than Minneapolis. If you enjoy this episode, hit that like button and subscribe.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, how's your day been? Good? Busy?
Kind of feels like a Monday. I was gone yesterday.
Okay.
So it's like lots of little fires and meetings, and it's like such a busy time of year for us.
Yeah.
Our revenue kind of goes. In fact, just today, Erin's like, wow, it's really interesting. She was looking at the graph of revenue, and it's like July, August. Like, it's just crazy for a couple of months.
Yeah, before like school starts and everyone's
It's very
getting
football
wrapped in.
driven.
Oh,
Tailgate.
gotcha.
Yeah. So majority of our product is shipping in July and August.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Did I hear, or maybe I saw on Instagram that you were like saying in a meeting randomly, like, we should get an NFL license, and then like no one heard it? Is that like a thing still?
Eventually, I think that is probably something that we will pursue.
Gotcha.
We're probably more the more meantime goal is more of we're definitely expanding into professional sports in a
Gotcha.
big way, but it will be more focused on spring for now, just because we're already at pretty much max capacity for fall sports.
Okay.
So
Cool.
Eventually we definitely will get to that point. But for now, we're like, okay, no more fall heavy divisions.
Sure. Yeah. I'm trying to think here, like, I can't remember at Startup Sioux Falls when I like did the introduction for the Startup Sunrise series.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember 2 kids, 3 kids.
I have 3.
3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. My husband Brian and I moved to Sioux Falls about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And we have 3 boys, 10, 8, and 4.
Okay, just boys. How do you feel about that? You're like cool with it, or you're like, I kind of wanted a little girl, or
I'm a boy mom all the way.
Boy mom all the way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're very active and busy, and we love to travel, and we're just on the go all the time. Good. And yeah, they're really fun.
So yeah, Jael will start with HitFire Questions. Favorite place to go visit?
Oh man, we love to travel. We spend a lot of time traveling. I would say though, a faithful we always come back to is our family loves Tennessee.
Okay, gotcha. Is it just the country music, or?
Actually, we tend to head more to the east side of the state. We love the Smokies.
Oh, okay.
But University of Tennessee is there. That's a draw. We first were introduced to it during COVID, and we were like, what's a state like South Dakota that's open for business that we could go visit? And that's when we fell in love with it.
That's awesome. And back to COVID. I feel like it's like the pre-COVID days, post-COVID days. So
yeah, everything. Truly.
Cool. What is your favorite restaurant in Sioux Falls?
Well, I'd say Parker's is kind of our go-to. That's like has a sweet spot. We've had lots of sentimental favorite little moments there. Okay. We also love the Harvester. That's been a really fun Harvester addition to Sioux Falls.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Who do you call the most?
Oh man. I was just saying to somebody on the team, we were doing a little lunch last week, and I was like, we actually spend more time together than we do with our families. That's the crazy part about work. I'd say there's probably a couple people on the team. Of course, my husband, he stays home with our 3 boys. That's awesome. So we have lots of communication.
Yeah. I would say the same thing with my wife. Just constant communication. Yeah. So sometimes I'm like, can you just check my calendar? They don't like that very much, though. So, yeah. I had another question. It was really good, and then I kind of just like flew out of my brain. Oh, easy one here. Favorite sports team, since you're owner of Gameday Social.
That's actually a really hard question. I love them all, and we always joke when people see us in airports, they always are a little confused because our kids and Brian and I will all be wearing like a different team.
Oh, okay.
People are like, that's confusing. I'm a jackrabbit, so I do love South Dakota State, of course. Honestly, I'd say I love whatever stadium I was at last is my like new favorite team.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So Jael Thorpe, we have you on with Move to Sioux Falls here. We're at the ranch, which is a Sodex Days property. My wife and I run a short-term rental property management business. And then I run Move to Sioux Falls, which is a real estate business. And it's not just about the real estate transaction here in Sioux Falls. It's more about the community, the people, what makes up Sioux Falls. So we're kind of here to just know about a little bit more about the people. And your name kind of came across the board just because Start Sioux Falls member with me. So I just wanted to get a little bit of background about you, just to kind of start us off, and then we'll dive deep into everything else.
Yeah, awesome. No, it's so fun to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Honestly, I think this interaction, this conversation is such a good example of what I've loved so much about Sioux Falls is just the constant collaboration, and the business community is so awesome here. But so my first business was actually in college. I started a photography studio when I was the ripe age of about 19.
Okay.
And I think that was just the moment when I feel like the Lord really laid on my heart that I was meant to be an entrepreneur.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I've been doing some iteration of that ever since.
Did you get your degree in like photography or media at all before, or?
I went to state for journalism and political science. So that was really, to me, honestly, entrepreneurship was more of, I mean, it wasn't like this big idea. It was more like I needed to pay for college.
Yeah.
And the traditional 9 to 5, student jobs just never worked super well for me. And that's when I just knew I was meant to be doing something creative.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually Zamboni drive at Dort. That's how I kind of got through. And I would never I'd be like, no, I can't do the 9 to 5. But the Zamboni thing was like so sporadic too. It kind of got me into the let's do something different than just 9 to 5.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That
Yeah.
sounds awesome.
So, okay, so you went from South Dakota State. Were you born and raised in Sioux Falls? Let me back up.
No, I actually grew up in a tiny, tiny town, Gary, South Dakota.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sure you've never heard of it.
I have heard of it, so.
About 250 people. Yeah, so I lived in South Dakota my whole life. I moved to Brookings for SDSU, and then I stayed and I lived there and ran a variety of small businesses until we moved to Sioux Falls. Yeah, a year and a half ago.
Okay, so just trying to figure out the timeline, and I'm trying not to bang the table so that we don't mess up noise or anything. But you went South Dakota State photography business into owner of Gameday Social, or was it like, hey, there were a couple mini businesses along the way to get me into that kind of?
Yeah, I mean,
business?
it was a windy road to find really, I think, my true passion.
Okay.
And so over the years, really where my induction into the world of fashion was through women's retail. So I started a store in Brookings in 2010, and then we had a store in Sioux Falls as well. And so 2 stores, and really that's where Gameday Social came from, was through the stores. We always did a few Jack's t-shirts. And
Okay.
then about 5 years ago, I just started to really desire something more scalable. I always had as an entrepreneur. I just wanted to find something that could really be scaled.
For sure.
And so, yeah, that's when that started. But yeah, I did women's retail for about 12 years.
Okay. What was like the aha moment to be like, oh, this is the scalable thing to like go chase after? Or were you like kind of like, I like my boutique and like I need to stay in this lane?
That moment, I'd say a really pivotal moment for me was almost exactly 5 years ago. I kind of on a whim, definitely on a whim, reached out to Shields and I said, hey, I've got this idea. I've got these t-shirts. Would you guys ever be interested? And they said yes to a meeting. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I drove to Fargo, like 6 t-shirts in my car, and I don't even think we didn't even have a business name. It was just an idea. And I think they saw the potential of what we were trying to do, which was women's licensed product with
Yeah.
just a little more flair.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
That's so cool. Just and it's nice, like, and Fargo is very similar to Sioux Falls, I would say, in like the businessy, like startup, small business nature of
Mhm.
like allowing for opportunities or just being open to having meetings. But I think it's just cool to see like, hey, all you had to do was like reach out to them, whether it was a phone call, text, or email, right? It is like, hey, yeah, let's just meet. And you're like, okay, cool.
I mean,
So,
I pretty much built this business on being okay with hearing no
yeah,
a lot.
for sure.
And so it was like, well, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They're going to say no, thank you.
Yeah.
And then what have I lost? Nothing. So, yeah.
Um, so Sioux Falls, I think of it now as I've been talking to people as it used to be best little big city. Most people now are like, hey, it's a big little city where it's got the big atmosphere, a lot of restaurants, a lot of people in it. The downtown has been very structured now, and always adding, right? Um, how why did you come to Sioux Falls a year and a half ago? Like, what made you like make that change from Brookings to we need to be in Sioux Falls?
Yeah, I think it was a long time coming, to be honest. I had wanted to be here for a while. A lot of our friends are here, a lot of our kids' activities. It felt like we were doing a lot of life in Sioux Falls. And I think really the moment when I really felt like this is where we needed to be was when I started to just think about how to really scale the company and how to grow something. And I knew that I just needed to get into an atmosphere where I would just naturally be around more business leaders,
For sure.
entrepreneurs, just like challenging you to think bigger.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. I think just being in Brookings, my mindset was so much more regionally focused. And it was about how do we make this great South Dakota State brand?
Yep.
And moving to Sioux Falls has really just, I think, really exposed me to just a lot more of a national, international vision. It's been really cool.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
I have that same problem when we were at Startup Sioux Falls. I think you like talk about like always wanting to scale and grow, and I think your husband always like, "Hey, aren't we okay with like being like okay with the sales we have?" Like what my wife and I have this argument too. Has there ever been like a time where you're like scaling and growing, and like one of these leaders is like, "Hey, you should do this," and you're like, "No, that's like not like a good idea." Like has that ever come? I've had it like a couple of times where people have said like, "You should do this," and I'm like, "That's different than like." Here's an example: short-term rentals are not long-term rentals, and when people go, "Hey, you should get as many long-term rentals," and if I got 100 long-term rentals that are short-term, right, and five of them want Christmas in July, it's very hard to like go deck out five different houses at Christmas time. Has there been like an idea that you're like, hey, we're gonna zag where everyone is zigging towards?
It's so interesting you would ask that because we've been thinking a lot about that lately. And I would say the challenge for me, honestly, has probably been more in at times throughout the business. I've felt that we needed to bring more industry expertise into the company by
Okay,
way of hiring people because I don't have a background in sports or international sourcing or any of these things. And that was honestly, to a degree, I think at times that became challenging was where the reason that we've been successful is because we have not done things the way it's done in the
yeah,
industry. And so then that can sometimes be challenging when you're hiring people with expertise because that can sometimes the vision can start to change from what you as the entrepreneur really know is the core
for
focus.
sure. Yeah, cool. That's just interesting to hear you say that, like doing something different. I feel like a lot of people are doing like the way it's not supposed to be done. Like I feel like there's a lot of pioneers happening right now in Sioux Falls. So, um, where do you see like Sioux Falls being in the next like let's just say 5 years? Like 10 years is too much time.
Honestly, I am just been blown away by just the culture of Sioux Falls, the growth mindset, the collaborative nature of the business community. I mean, living in a smaller community for most of my career and also traveling a lot. I spend a lot of time visiting our customers
For
around the
sure.
country, and I've just begun to recognize like how distinctive the culture of Sioux Falls is. And my husband lived in Minneapolis for about 12 years
Okay.
before we got married, and we always thought we would move to Minneapolis one day. And I think the more time that we spend here, and even just what's happened in the world in the last 5 years, we've just recognized how critical being in a really business minded, business friendly community
For
is.
sure.
And I mean, I think a big reason why Sioux Falls has grown so quickly is the proximity, honestly, to a city like Minneapolis, where it's just a very different value system. It's a very different way of doing business. And I think that's benefited the city tremendously. So I think the growth will just continue.
For sure. There's like a difference in perspective from like it's weird like how the state has like it's very red state, right? And then you have like your swing state of Iowa, and then you have Minneapolis, which is very blue state, and then Omaha, right, is down there, and then you have Colorado on the left side. So it's just like a weird like mixture of all these different mindsets, I would say. So it's I think having different mindsets come into the state help you grow more, but also like help you find like where the vision is of your company when you're like, oh, hey, I'm getting different perspectives to help me pick and choose which ones are the best, right? Whereas Minneapolis, right? You go there, you're like, well, above me is Canada. And so I don't know if I'm gonna go across the border to like go find out their perspectives, and they're in a totally different like social economic economy there with we're capitalists, they're socialists. So I lived there for a year. So I don't advise you to
Yes.
go live there. So
Well, I think what you said reminds me of how I really feel like Sioux Falls has the culture of Sioux Falls. It's like we've been able to find this sweet spot of traditional pro business values, but also some progressive
Mm,
love for art and great food
yep.
and just this like really beautiful combination. And I was talking to a business leader who actually moved their company from Minneapolis to Sioux Falls. And what he said was Sioux Falls is like what Minneapolis was 20 years ago. And that kind of stuck with me. And my husband Brian says the same thing. And I mean, my dream is just that Sioux Falls can continue to preserve the culture that we have
Yeah.
now as we continue to grow.
I would agree with that 100% because I don't want to turn into Minneapolis. Not saying they're
Right.
bad,
Right.
but they're just different. Like I had a conversation with someone at startup was like, "Hey, we have differing opinions, but we're able to like agree to disagree and not hate each other. We can be friends afterwards," which it like goes back to that balance, that healthy balance I feel like of
Exactly.
traditional with progressive in there. So,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
um is there anything you want to know about me? I mean, I feel like we've just been like grilling you with all the questions. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would be interested to know from you for your with your business of short-term rentals of just have what you've seen, how you've seen the market change in that space over the last few years. Are people using, I mean, when we travel as a team, we almost exclusively stay in Airbnbs. I
yeah.
think it's awesome.
Yeah, we've seen a uptick definitely in like more companies going that route because they can save so much money on like food costs. Like they don't have to pay their employees to just go out to eat every night, right? They would be like, and then like their hotel savings as well. You put 5 rooms for $250 a night instead of one room for, let's just say, $180 a night if we're trying to stay cheap,
Mhm.
right? Five of the times that by five, that's a good chunk of change. I think a construction business, we reached out to all of them, and one of them reached back and was like, I just would have saved 30 grand if I would have used you guys. And I was
Wow.
like, that's a huge chunk of change for a smaller construction company trying to just get started. So like I've seen the landscape of that change. Um, and then I think the market's gotten really saturated in Sioux Falls, so I'm just like kind of waiting for like Sioux Falls to get a little bit bigger. I try not to like add, like I probably get once a week like, hey, can you manage this property? And I was like, hey,
Oh,
I've done the numbers. I am the most expensive in town, and I can't get you to break even on this, even with like my marketing background, our brand, it gets really difficult.
yeah.
So I try to advise a lot of people, like if you are wanting to get into it, you better like own the house outright or have a lower interest rate, or it's got to be like this bomb property that like I saw one in Florida that was like decked out Hogwarts, right? Like Harry Potter style. Like people are going to go to that for
Yeah,
the
very niche.
experience. Yes.
Mhm.
So, and I try to tell anyway, like, hey, if you're working with another agent, please do your numbers and your due diligence before you just like get into it. So that's what I've seen with like the market of short-term rentals here in Sioux Falls. So
Well, I think it's easy to romanticize, and you see it just seems like it would be so profitable. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. We love it. For us, when I'm traveling, I like to be able to stay on routine and cook healthy
yeah.
meals and not go out all the time. And so it's been a huge blessing for us.
Have you like seen anybody like add any services? Like we've had like a stock the fridge kind of thing where it's like come to Sioux Falls, have your groceries already delivered to you kind of
Oh,
thing.
that'd be amazing.
Yeah. So have you seen that on your
I
travels at all?
haven't. No, I mean, usually our routine is we just do a Walmart delivery order
For
to arrive
sure.
when we get there, but, I mean, I think all of those services, I think, particularly if you're looking to get more into the business traveler, that convenience is huge.
Yeah. And then like you just open the fridge and it's all there, which
Yeah,
is
that would be a
nice.
dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Um, so Game Day Social is awesome. I
Thanks.
just like looked at all your stuff, uh, did some homework and everything. What's been like a surprise like product that you've made, or like maybe it's like a college that you've worked with where you're like, oh, I never thought they would sign on with us.
Yeah, oh, good question. I feel like there's a surprise every week, honestly. Um,
Small businesses,
small
right?
business, yeah, I mean, it's just the we just were reviewing, we signed a 3-year lease on an office, and I love the office. We've already outgrown it. We're a year in. Like,
Oh
things just
yeah.
change so quickly at this stage and pace of growth. Honestly, I think what's probably been interesting to me is how the universe I mean, our number 1 volume university is Nebraska,
Oh, okay.
and I most people around here would say, "I'm not surprised by that," but I'm like, we work with Georgia and Alabama
Yeah,
and
like
Florida,
huge
these huge
guys. Yeah,
universities, and we sell significantly more Nebraska Huskers product. So, I think that's been kind of interesting to just learn about not not every major university has the fan base that is buying a lot of apparel.
for sure.
So, just kind of figuring out those nuances. I'm really not a sports fan. That's what's kind of funny about that I do this business. So I'm learning all the time about the
That's
whole
awesome.
industry.
You know, one of my hit fire questions was gonna be like, "What's your favorite NFL team or something?" But then I remembered you weren't a sports fan, so I was like, maybe I shouldn't ask that question."
My kids would be my 10-year-old who's a huge sports fan would be mortified if you asked me because I'd be like, I don't really know."
Well,
Yeah, no, I just have always just my expertise and my passion is female consumers,
that's awesome.
and that is such a neglected market in sports. It's
For
all
sure.
about guys and what guys are wearing, and so that's been yeah, that's what's been the most fun.
Have you, like, thought about, with my wife will love this, but, like, Caitlin Clark, big phenom, like, have you thought about getting into more of, like, the WNBA and, like, all of that? Or are you already in there? Like, maybe I didn't do my homework well enough, so
Yeah, yeah, no, that question has been asked more lately, and what I think it's awesome is just that there's more of a demand there. I think there's been so much more awareness brought to women's
for
sports.
sure.
Really, a lot of that brought by Caitlin Clark and just her stardom. I mean, there's just more awareness, and that people are that conversation is happening. I think is awesome. We do work with some professional women's soccer teams.
Okay.
That's been a fun area that's growing. Yeah, I mean, I think, coming off of the Olympics, being there right now, I always am just fascinated by these amazing female athletes and how could we help them grow their brands. And I think there's definitely growth in that
For
area.
sure. I think, you say women's soccer, we partner with, Emily Thomas, who does the Sioux Falls city football team here in Sioux Falls.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I just think it's interesting. I'm like, "Oh, you're with women's soccer. She runs a team." Do you guys do anything with them at all, or
No, I've seen her name pop up a few times, but
she's gonna
no.
be on the next episode, so maybe I'll just, like, put a
Do
bug
a
in her
little
ear, like,
intro.
"Hey, you
Yeah.
wanna we just had JL on and"
Yeah, yeah, we love that. I mean, really, like we really don't do 95% of our business is nationally. There aren't we do, of course, a lot of work with South Dakota
For
State,
sure.
University of South Dakota, but, yeah, it always would be fun to do some more things locally.
Yeah, cool. Um I'm trying to like figure out a couple more questions here because I just feel like you have so much knowledge. Um, maybe give me like how does like the family balance work out? Do you just bring your family to a lot of everything when you're traveling, or are you like, hey, I have a business meeting to go fly to. I gotta take this alone, or how does that dynamic work out?
Yeah. Oh, I love that you asked that. I mean, my family is my ultimate driver in life, of course. And I think where we've been able to find that balance is my husband very generously was willing to set aside his career and stay home with our
For sure,
kids. And so I kind of feel like that was a pretty pivotal moment for the business because as a mom, I was able to just really drive the business forward and not feel
Mm.
that I was letting my kids down.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's still some of that mom guilt that's just
Yeah.
real, but just knowing that they're getting this amazing amount of attention from their dad while I'm doing that has been remarkable. And so it's kind of a combination. I mean, we do homeschool, and a
Mm.
big reason for that is that they come with me a lot.
Yeah.
Um, we're getting ready to head out, like Labor Day weekend. We're going to football games
Okay.
across the country.
Yeah.
Like they love that stuff. My boys love sports. So yeah, I mean, we definitely try to go together as much as possible, but there are times where, if I have a really intense week or if it's just a couple of days, I'll just go
For sure.
on my own.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think having that work life integration that's just more my philosophy than
Yeah.
balance, because like balance is so unachievable. If
For
it can
sure.
all just be a little bit more integrated, that's I think how I felt like just more intentional that way.
Yeah, I hated how I kind of worded that question because I usually tell people like there's work-life balance or life-work balance, but it's not really balance. It's more just you said it well, integrated with everything. I'm gonna need to talk to your husband too, because I feel like Kayla, she works like well, it used to be, I think it was 2 days a week. We just lost our nanny. She just had a kid. Um, Shout out to Ellie. Thank you, Nanny Ellie.
The
But
saints of the world.
yes, but so like usually my wife would have 2 days and I would watch the kids throughout the week too. So now I need to talk to your husband like, hey, how do you deal with all your kids? And I mean, I'm 2 at 3 years and under, so it's just like kind of crazy. So time of
You're
life.
at a very physically demanding
Yeah,
age. And I mean, Winston, my almost 5-year-old, I mean, the Shields story is memorable because I drove to Shields. He's born in September. So I was like pregnant out to here, driving to Shields, Fargo. And so I'm like, oh, that was 5 years ago. We're at a different stage
yeah,
now where like my kids can all carry their own bags through the
for
airport.
sure.
Like you'll be there and it'll go fast.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So last question here before we like ask you, what you got going on in like 7 weeks from now or whatever. But Sioux Falls is awesome already. What are like if budget wasn't an issue, Lord willingly, what would the top 3 things be that you would add to make Sioux Falls even more awesome?
Oh man. I mean, the business person in me, and I was a elected official for a long time, has a very hard time imagining things without a budget
For
tied
sure.
to
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like, what does that even mean?
yeah.
Um, I mean, I think probably the one of the things I miss about Brookings was a major university that adds a lot of flair to a
For
community,
sure.
of course. Um, I mean, a professional sports team would be fun.
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, I think we've been here for a year and a half. We're still exploring new things that we
Yeah,
didn't know
for
existed. And
sure.
it's just kind of amazing how much truly is here. So, um, yeah,
I got you on a stumper of a question.
you really did. Yeah. Everything has a price tag.
Right? Well, we can always circle back to that like in like 2 years from now if you want to be back on.
There you
Be
go.
like, hey, what things would you add now?
Yes.
So now
Yep.
that you're have grown even more. So well, JL, owner of Gameday Social, I appreciate you being on, telling us a little bit why Sioux Falls is awesome, why you moved here from Brookings,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And maybe just let the people know like what you got going on. It's 10 weeks from now. Since this episode will release a little bit later, just let us know like is there like a certain like product you're dropping, or is there like something like that you want to keep mysterious for people? So
Mm. Well, I'm hopeful in 10 weeks we'll have a major announcement in the professional sports
okay,
space.
cool.
Knock on wood. Um, Other than that, I mean, by then, by October, football is in full swing, and
For sure.
we'll be hitting record numbers again. We just continue to grow so significantly each year that I hopefully by then all of our top schools are performing well in football. I would say, we would really love to build our direct to consumer side more. We're like
Okay.
98% business to business. And I would love to just continue to build that consumer story and connect with consumers through our online store. And yeah, I would just challenge people if they're going to be going to any games this fall, check us out. We'll help get you styled.
Okay, so where can they find you and how do they order so we can get more direct to consumer? And
Yeah.
anybody listening, like if you could help Jael out with direct to consumer, give her like a DM, or where can they find you?
Honestly, go to our website, gamedaysocial.com, and we just launched a brand new affiliate program that we're super excited about. So fans of our product can buy the product and then tag us, and then they can get discounts and commission to tag us. We love when our fans tag us in product and just the way that they style it. And so, yeah,
Cool.
Find us on Instagram too, Gameday Social.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jael. And I think that's a wrap. So
awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This was fun.
If you enjoyed this episode and want more content, hit that like and subscribe button.